America, my name is Osei-Frimpong, and I think we're entering an age where there's going to be a pretty strict bifurcation of youth high culture and low culture, where low culture is pretty much just abandoning kids to the algorithm and whatever happens to pop on their TikTok feeds or whatever. Because I myself was abandoned to the market, and I'm old enough that when I was young, that just meant being abandoned to watching TV, 3 channels. And I'm hoping my favorite daytime game show would come on, and my sister was watching soaps. And it wasn't that big of a deal because TV wasn't that interesting, so we went outside. Or I went outside. She just kept kind of watching soaps. But now it's a little bit different. So if you abandon your kid to the screens, where in my age, it was, like I said, it was 3 channels on TV, you're abandoning them to an algorithm that's been programmed to destroy their mind and get them addicted in a way that TV just wasn't functionally able to do because of the ad model depended on you actually paying attention to the show. And whereas this ad model depends on kind of like stealing your attention in a different way. So I think that people who parent like I was parented are not going to have the outcomes as felicitous as myself. And I think that there's going to be a difference between that quality of low culture, which is, like I said, just abandoning your kids to the market, which is different in the 80s and 90s than it is today. You could abandon your kids in the market to the market back then, and it wasn't great, but it wasn't nearly as dangerous as abandoning your kids to the market today. And those parents who actually understand that you need an intentional youth culture. There are arguments that said that the baby boomers were kind of the first generation of teenagers. They had disposable income and their own kind of like sway in the market, the American Bandstand era, and they kind of created the teenager as something to be. There have always been like adolescents, but they just didn't have power the way that those people did, and market power and kind of an independent income and not so many kind of responsibilities. So it's slightly different. But now it's a little bit different because youth culture is pernicious in a way, not and kind of introduces a quality of self-degradation that may not have been the case, a generation ago or 2 generations ago, if we're talking to the boomers, where you were still kind of determined by nature. There just weren't so many options for varieties of degradation or fecklessness. So now I think there's, there are pernicious algorithms you need to fight in order to curate your child's youth. And I say this as we're heading into summer, and a lot of you guys should be thinking about this. You need to overprogram your child. And a lot of people will say like, no, just let them have fun, let them enjoy themselves, let them relax. No, those people do not care about your child, the quality of your child's mind. Let them be happy. No, you need to program your kid within an inch of their life. Like, they do not need dead time. They need more and more activities. And then they could sleep, and then they wake up, and you keep them moving. And you keep them moving. Because in this era where there is a low youth culture, and that's determined by the algorithm, there is no safe space. Like, it's a moving train, and you can't kind of be neutral and just kind of let them find themselves. No, not with the algorithm trying to have designs on your kid's mind. The varieties of algorithms trying to have designs on your kid's mind. So you need to actually take responsibility as a parent to determine what your child does during this time. And culture is what allows you and what enables you and what kind of fills in your ideas of how to turn your freedom into meaning, how to turn your leisure time into meaning, how to turn your life into meaning. That's what culture does, right? So you need a high culture now because the low culture of the algorithm is low and is even more pernicious than maybe it was a generation ago or 2 generations ago when the algorithm wasn't just as good at its job. Right? Like 3 channels just isn't as enticing as YouTube now. It was hard for a young boy to find boobs. You needed to find someone with a dirty parent or uncle, and then maybe you could get a picture of a boob. It would be like a project. It would be a project to find a boob. Now on YouTube, you just need a kid who knows how to click that they're over 18, and they're just giving away boobs. So you cannot abandon kids to the culture now, because the market, you cannot abandon them to the market, and you cannot abandon them to the culture, because it's designed to not just rot their brain, turn them into parasites or zombies. I cannot say this enough, that you need to program your kids. You need to program your kids into within an inch of their life. Every moment of their waking moment should be designed, should have a plan. They could have some downtime, but even that is bounded like a recess. It's not the default before they go to the next activity that you've designed, or the next something. I don't think people understand how important culture is now in this era, where there is a low culture, and the low culture is abandoning your kids to the market and the algorithm, that you need to create a high culture. Now, this high culture could be pretty mid. It could be a series of sports camps or something, music or something. But it has to be intentional. It doesn't have to be like the fanciest museums, but the fact that it has to be intentional already renders it high culture in this era of the vulgar, which is the algorithm. Right? So do not raise your kid the way I was raised. Raise your kid the way I'm raising my kids. I'll tell you the truth. The way I was raised worked for me because the enticements were not that seductive. The market was not that good at destroying minds. And, my mind is not what it could be. My life is not what it could be. But now, if you raise your kids the way I was raised, they don't even get this outcome. They get something markedly worse. They get something markedly worse. At least I had books and the disposition to read them, because sometimes TV wasn't that great. At least I had outside and the disposition to go there, because the internet didn't exist and television, was boring, and it was more fun to hang out with my friends, riding bikes around. At least I had that. Now, kids don't even have that, because the screens are very good at their jobs. The screens are very good at their jobs. So you need to create a culture. And culture, once again, is just what teaches you how to turn your freedom into meaning, how to turn your leisure into meaning. Because kids do now have a lot of leisure. They're not out in the farm milking cows or anything, but they need to learn how to turn that into meaning. And you can't just abandon them to the market to let them find it themselves. No, they'll be consumed. And I want your kids to win. I want your kids to win. I saw Carl Karsnak says Tiger Moms get results. A bit extreme, but the right idea in general. Actually, The Battle Hymn of the Tiger Mom is a pretty good book. Her problem is she doesn't have an autonomous understanding of freedom and right. So she's training her kids to succeed up any ladder that happens to be before them, without regard to whether that ladder is just, right? So she's raising little mercenaries. She's raising little mercenaries, very effective mercenaries, but little Nazi. She's raising little awful people in that way. They'll be very effective in whatever job they're in, but they won't have the discernment to actually understand whether this is a good job. This is the battle hymn of the Tiger Mother. There's no kind of autonomous understanding of reason and freedom and how it's realized in this world. Carl Karsnak says, companies are expending massive resources to pander to unattended kids. That is the truth. They spend millions to make billions. Crude, but effective. Yeah, because these kids are unattended while their parents are off making money or finding money. And then the parents don't have the time to say no to the kids, or the disposition to say no to the kids. So the kids then end up spending their parents' money to, on whatever. Right? So I'm going to do another video, maybe right after this. It's going to be slightly different. on kind of antitrust in youth culture because I think smart parents like myself and like you have figured it out. That like you need to be serious about your kids in institutions. And now we need to be serious about making sure those institutions are just, because the billions are going to be spent anyway, right? So people are going to, like, billions of dollars goes into spending money on kids. Now, the question is, what kind of institutions like are securing those money, that money? And this came to my mind, one, when I was reading Matt Stoller's book, Goliath, on the cheer industry and how there's kind of an antitrust issue because one company kind of owns all the things and they put on all the meets and all that. But really, it was 2 weeks ago when my kids were running a state track meet. You know, my 7-year-old is run a 5:54 mile. Yeah, 5:54. He's 7, right? And then my 10 and 12-year-old won the 2 mile at the state track meet. My 10-year-old set the state record on it. This is in Georgia. And we wanted to get T-shirts to commemorate that we had made the state meet. We'd qualified for the state meet and like we'd won. So we got T-shirts. And those T-shirts were very expensive. I think there was like $30 for a T-shirt and $50 for a sweatshirt, like airport prices. Because they had people who were excited to watch their kids do a thing at the state meet. And so we just spent this money. And then on the ride home, I was like, babe, we need to get into the T-shirt business. Because like I was talking to the T-shirt person there and they said they made $10K last year at this state meet. And they have a better system now. So they probably came in with more money. I'm like, that's $10K in like money and good vibes. I was like, how do we get into the T-shirt business with respect to some of these youth meets? Because anything that has a championship, this is some free game. Anything that has a championship attached to it means that you had to qualify and you're happy to, like, you did something to get there. You're going to want to commemorate that you put in the effort to even show up. So even if you're going to state championships, that means you made it out of prelims, you made it out of districts or whatever, you're going to buy a T-shirt. And this is the same thing with like an all Southern honor orchestra. If you've made it past a qualifying, that means you're excited to be there and you need to show off and your parents are excited to be there and they might like pay for it. Now, if you just have to sign up and go, that's not a great place to like sell swag. But if you had to qualify to get there, that is a great place to do swag, right? And so I was just thinking about how I can get into that business because I think youth sports are going to be a growing industry as people understand that either you're going to abandon your kid to the market or you're going to get them very into like, you know, ice dancing or whatever. You're going to get them into that thing. So I was thinking, well, you know, maybe I can figure out how to get into this business where I hawk T-shirts at some of these championship events. And so I went on the phone and called about how I could sell T-shirts at, say, the high school state championships. And it turns out that's all locked down by some property ownership company that does like high school championships across the nation. And getting in with them then like is a whole thing, right? So you got to bump out some people. So you have like an antitrust issue where you can't actually just show up at the meet or organize with the vendor at the meet to do it there. You have to organize with this, in Georgia, the Georgia High School Association, High School Athletics Association. And then they have outsourced it to like, I think it's Teal Properties. And they take care of all of that vending. And, that contract is going to be worth $1 zillion because if they have probably 7 different kinds of state high school track meets, depending on the size of your school, maybe it's close to 10 different state high school track meets, depending on the size of your school. Each one of those meets, you're going to clear thousands of dollars of merchandise of people who are just happy that they made it to state. Forget the championships. Of course, the champions are going to buy a T-shirt, but everyone else is just going to be happy with just making it to state. I made it to state. I still have a USA track and field shirt when I made it to nationals when I was a kid. And then when I qualified, I didn't place or anything, but I qualified and I still have that USA shirt. And same with Track City. I went to Eugene one day for like, it was like it wasn't Junior Olympics. It might have been Junior Olympics. And, I qualified, went and competed, and I got a shirt because I had to qualify to compete. So I wanted to show like I'm one of the guys who's going to qualify and compete. So there was a lot of money to be made in youth culture. And the next show is going to be on antitrust and how to open up that money to a lot of other people, because I think people understand that there's billions to be made. Yeah. So yeah, if you love the contest and if you make it to state in something like marching band, you could sell a t-shirt at that meet and like make quite a bit of money. Now, if it's just a regular tournament, I don't think that swag will sell. But if you had to make it to somewhere, if you qualify, and that's the t-shirt that sells, that's the swag that sells. By the way, if you appreciate what I'm doing, and I think you should, because I'm trying not to, I hope you don't screw up your kids' growth and squander their youth, and then are surprised when you have a wastrel as an older kid. You should go to www.funkyacademic.com and kick in $5, $15, or $50 a month. And I'll keep doing giving you quality of wisdom that you don't get everywhere else on the internet. But the thesis of this video is that low culture is abandoning kids to the algorithm. And that's what a lot of parents are doing, because maybe that's how they were raised, and they don't understand how much more pernicious this algorithm is than it was in the 80s and 90s, or even the 2000s before YouTube. And if you abandon the kids to the algorithm in this age, like, you're doing damage to their mind. Whereas if you abandon them to the 3-station television before, if you abandon them to the 3-station television before, it's not that big of a deal, because it wasn't as sophisticated. And I still watched entirely too much TV, but it wasn't nearly as pernicious as kids who are abandoned to the algorithm. Like I said before, if I wanted to see boobs, it needed to be like a plan, a strategy, 3 weeks in the making to see a boob. Like, I need to find someone who might have had a videotape, and then I need to find someone who had a VHS player, and then I needed to find someone who might have had like blah, blah, and this, and then I heard tell that blank and blank has an uncle with a magazine, and like, it was like a whole ordeal that took a no small amount of strategy and like the collective brain cells of 5 or 6 eighth graders to figure out how to see a boob. Now, it's just, all they need is a phone. So, that algorithm is just trash for kids' minds. So you need to, if you learn anything from this video, you need to schedule your kids within an inch of their life during the summer. And that's why I'm telling you this now on the cusp of the summer, before you screw up. Before you screw up, I want you to take that seriously. I want you to take that seriously, that you need summer plans. You need summer plans, and they need to be full of content, but mostly they just need to be structured. They need to be structured like interesting time, because abandoning kids to the algorithm in these times is just turning them into suckers. And as Carl Karsnak says, companies are expending massive resources to pander to unattended kids, which was me, right? And maybe your kid. But they spend millions to make billions, crude but effective. It's the truth. It is true. What do you think about the bill to make porn illegal? I mean, good luck. I don't know. I don't know how it would work. I just think we need to understand that parents now have to be parents in a way that they didn't have to be parents. You have to treat that phone in your house like a gun. It's okay. It's your right as an American to have, but it can do a lot of damage. Become a neck and shoulder doctor. Every 10-year-old plus will need your services. Yeah, because if they're staring at their phone, they're gonna need a chiropractor. I guess chiropractors are going to be in a good job security for the next stretch. Jonathan hate the anxious generation. Yeah, I've read some of hates other stuff, and I don't know. It was okay. I suspect he's right about this because it seems so obvious if you actually pay attention and have seen the difference between good and bad parenting. So a lot of Jews, a lot of Mormons, a lot of Catholics, a lot of people who were well parented, or was seriously parented, and then can but still have enough purchase or views into the world of people who aren't parented to see the differences and the problems, and that society has wrought. Well, are going to come up with pretty much the same wisdom that I've given you for the last, 10, 15 minutes. But I will tell you, as someone who wasn't parented, I squeaked by not being parented or unattended, but I would not squeak by now. What's my opinion on Scott Galloway? I think he's a net positive for the culture. I think a lot of people are net positive. I think Jordan Peterson's a net positive for the culture. I think Scott Galloway is probably more positive. I think Galloway's honest about, the algorithm's bad, YouTube's not great for your kid's mind, and that we we don't really have a plan for boys and men in the same way. Now his plan is just everybody just go to the gym and work hard for 20 years and then everything will work out. I think that's not understanding the social aspect, the political aspect of the problem. We need policies to address some of the ways in which parents are screwing this up and the way that society is unnecessarily harsh on parents. Oh, there's a black screen. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me turn on my camera again. I guess there was a problem. I will be back. All right, looks like my camera went down. Show's over. Got to switch cameras, and I will talk to you guys at another time. Peace.